first session with Ram Dass and friends. We're the friends. Roshi mentioned a friend of ours, Ram Dass, particularly Ram Dass, me, Krishna Das, Ramesh, Han, who was with us back in the original days with Maharaji. His name is Ram Giri, and as Roshi said, he is in a transition phase with terminal cancer. And we've been communicating with him, and his daughter Ganga is actually here with us for this week. And he just wrote to me. So we're talking about no death, no fear, and we are talking about how we cultivate no death, no fear. And here is somebody who's directly experiencing this, what we're talking about. So I thought I'd read this. I did read it to Roshi, but nobody else. So these guys haven't heard it either. He says, "You won't get easily rid of me. In fact, I am planning not to go anywhere. The perfection of loving awareness is everywhere. Wonderful to see this so clearly unfolding. I am having a wonderful experience. As the body of separation is slowly falling apart more and more, I have the clarity to observe it without fear. I have the grace to be able to share it and reap the great love and gratitude this sharing evokes. I am experiencing a greater and greater emptiness as it becomes an evident reality that this person is not who I am, and who I actually am is living through this body for the time it takes for it. Still, he, Maharaji, serves and shared his love through this body, which is the answer to my prayer." Beautiful. And there's something else that I was given by Parvati Marcus, my ex, who wrote Love Everyone, which is an incredible book of our journey following Ram Dass back to India, and our stories, Westerner stories of meeting him and so on, which is back there. She went to India many years ago, and she went and sat with Siddhima, who many of you do know is has been our Indian mother. She left us a couple of months ago, and a saint in her own right. And Parvati went to her and talked to her about her father who had just passed, and she had ashes that she wanted to put in a sacred river and so on. So Ma was giving her all of the wherewithal to do that. And then she said, "Here, I want you to have this." And it was a shloka from the Bhagavad Gita that I thought I'd read. "The soul is never born, nor does it die, nor does it exist on coming into being. For it is unborn, eternal, everlasting, and primeval. Even though the body is slain, the soul is not." And she kept that with her all these years and gave it to me, knowing what we were doing in this retreat. And interestingly, since we have Bob here, I thought we have something from the Gita, and I found something. Roshi was talking about Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche and her meeting with him. Incredible Lama. And he quoted Milarepa, which I thought we'd have from the Buddhist side. Fearing death, I went to the mountains. Over and over again, I meditated on death's unpredictable coming and took the stronghold of the deathless, unchanging nature. Now I am completely beyond all fear of dying. So these two very much alike shlokas, really. So I think it'd be great to start, Ram Dass, if you started with the soul that Krishna is talking about in the Gita, and what those qualities are, the unchanging qualities of it, and how you've talked about soul over the years.
Yes. I'm a bhakti yogi, and love is intertwined in this method. It doesn't get to the one immediately, no. Stepwise. Steps are, this plane that we're talking about. This plane, and the next plane is soul land, in which individual souls are beings of light. They've come down from the one. And so they have love, compassion, wisdom, peace, and joy. Don't forget that last one. When I first you start to think in your mind, and you think who you are. That's who you in your body. In your senses. And you and I made the here. This is the I am. Me. Thoughts. You think you are you think you are who you are. You think it. And then the identification is bring down into the heart. This one. A mantra, a phrase. I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. I am loving. I'm loving. Maybe the halfway through the I am, leave it with the mind. So, loving awareness, loving awareness, loving awareness, loving awareness. And you get into the spiritual heart. And then you sense a doorway or maybe a veil, a doorway, to the next plane of consciousness. And you step that doorway, and you have perception. You step. You then have a soul. You are a spiritual being. delving into humanness. That's the perception of yourself. And the soul witnesses your thoughts. Witnesses your incarnation, your life. From there, from that plane of consciousness, we as humans can operate on two planes, the soul plane and the ego plane, so that you can live your life on the ego plane and witness it on the soul plane. I'm a soul in this yick. Wow. As a soul, I look at all of you. The individual differences are there. And then I go look at you as souls. You are a soul. You are a soul. We are souls. The minute you identify yourself with your soul, you see other people as souls. Your parents, your kids, your friends, all of them souls. We are souls. Souls are wrapped That's what it,
Wrapped in yuck.
meat puppets.
Meat puppets? Meat puppets, all right. Meat space. Right.
Wrapped in our own karma. Finally. Wrapped in our karma from thousands of lifetimes, incarnations. And then also your life, this incarnation. The soul is wrapped in karma. And the soul knows that it's merging with the one, which is what that before birth, you've got to rip that karma. You have to go to school for that ripping of the karma. And if the school is here in this incarnation, the school you and I have, we're fifth graders. The school has it's got individuality. Individuality is producing fear. Little me and the big universe. And this isn't bad school. School, because individual beings, individual states, war, we're learning. am a soul. Soul is loving. I love everything. Everything. I love my wheelchair. I love my attendants. I love my friends. I love Buddhists.
Me too.
What? What?
I'm just thinking you might want to share the stage.
Do I love her?
Definitely.
She is wanting me to stop.
No, no.
You can't. You can't cross her.
All right, so since we have this interruption, we did want to, so Krishna Das, when I talked to him about thinking what we were going to do in this session and have Bob come up and join us, he said to me, well, Bob talks about soul. He's the only Buddhist I ever heard talk about soul in the context of calling it the sublime continuum. Now, I found something which is from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and it's a John Woodruff in the introduction.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm sure you've read this, Bob, but it certainly connects with these two completely radically different points of view around soul and anatta, no self. So here's John's interpretation. In life, and he calls soul complex. In life, the soul complex is never for 2 consecutive moments the same, but it is, like the body, in constant change. There is thus a series of successive and in one sense different states which are in themselves but momentary. There is still a unifying bond in that each momentary state is a present transformation representative of all those which are past, as it will be the generator of all future transformations potentially involved in it. Can you talk about
Yes, sure.
your vantage?
What came to me this morning when upon request, when Ram Dass, upon request to talk about the soul, first thing he said was, yes. And what came to me was the Dharma teaching of the great American Dharma teacher in regard to the issue of soul and soullessness, self and selflessness, of which a huge fuss has been made for thousands of years about Buddhism and Hinduism. And what came to me was the teaching of Yogi Berra. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. So what Mr. Woodruff is speaking about is what in Buddhist science you can call the super subtle mind, as it's elaborated in the most advanced Indian Buddhist science, which is this tantric science, where they say there is a coarse mind and body, that's the one in the meat puppet, that's the one that runs, the consciousness that runs the meat puppet. Then there's the subtle body mind, which is the sort of chakra system and experiences of space, white, red, dark space, type of thing. And then the super subtle mind, which is clear light, which is inexpressible, but totally experienceable. So when he says about that, it's always changing, and every second it's this and that. That's true on the relative level. On the actual level, when we say absolute, ultimate, we're actually talking about actual. Buddha's discovery is the same discovery as you hear about in the Upanishads, the end of the Vedas, the Vedanta, which Vedanta means the termination of the Vedas, actually. And same discovery. When he attained enlightenment, in his autobiography, he says that he said, deep, peace, uncomplicated, clear light, uncreated, unborn. So the real self for Buddha is nirvana, actually, the third noble truth. The first and second, suffering, its cause. The fourth, path to the freedom from suffering. Those are all relative realities, and they're very important to deal with, of course. Nobody's denying about them. But the reason people like Buddha, the reason from Hindu point of view, Vishnu created himself as Buddha, which Buddha doesn't mind. Actually, before that, the eighth avatar of Vishnu was Krishna. And Krishna had relationship problems occasionally. He did. He occasionally did. At one point, Radha wasn't sure she was going to take him back because he was so excited about all those gopis. And if you look at Gita Govinda, you see how much trouble Krishna had in getting Radha to take him back. So then, in Buddha's case, he decided he was going to be celibate. He was going to be like, look at Lone Ranger, no Shakti. But he still looks happy. Face looks just like Krishna's and Radha's, looks male and female both. So the real self of Buddha is nirvana. We all have that. And this is very crucial to not just Western society. All societies under authoritarian cultures, high priests, kings, presidents, prime ministers, they want everyone to be frightened. This no fear thing is revolutionary and subversive. So therefore, that's why they don't allow people to have books of the dead. That's why they don't want people to think about death, so they can recruit them for their armies. If people were aware of their death, they would not volunteer. No way to go get themselves all mashed up and mash up another bunch of people just for some more oil wells or something, some more territory. Never, they'd all quit. Totally. So we're all conditioned to think. I love also what Ramdas said, that it's a gradual thing, bit by bit. That's the teaching of another great Buddhist teacher in America, Bill Murray. In the famous film called What About Bob? Which is not about me, but it's about Bill Murray, about his character. And he goes, baby steps, remember? He's going around with a little plastic bag with his goldfish that he's taking with him for the weekend. Remember? Going baby steps. So we're all one. We all have the same soul, which is nirvana. We all have the default reality. Our actual reality is freedom from suffering. And Buddha only put it that way at first because he didn't want to say bliss right off. Because if you say bliss right off, they think you're trying to sell them something. Because almost everywhere, bliss is illegal. You get arrested. Even if you feel bliss sometime for no reason, you feel worried. What did I do wrong? What's going to happen to me? You know, we're only happy, we feel comfortable when we're sort of tolerating our misery. And some people wrongly think, oh, I love Buddhism because it lets me have my misery. Forget about it. Buddha's not letting anybody have misery. He's pointing out we don't like it. And his smile, look at that grin on his face. He's saying, I'm happy even without Radha. Therefore, later when Buddha shows himself as Vajradhara in the Tantra, he's a good partner. Because he's not putting all the bliss over on her and demanding it from her. Like some of us males do. I think. The present company slip. So the point is, what's wonderful is we all agree. They say, as Aryadeva, the famous Aryadeva, and Nagarjuna also said, he said, sometimes Buddhas teach self or soul, sometimes they teach selflessness or soullessness. But you know, in the Heart Sutra, everybody recites that all the time, and they don't just say no self in the Heart Sutra. They say no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body. So Buddha's not taking away your nose. He's just saying on this ultimate level, your meat puppet is finally not you. What really is you is your nirvana.
Yeah.
And once you're filled with bliss, right, you don't mind sharing it with everybody, do you? In fact, sometimes you are obnoxiously sharing it with everybody. Everybody knows that. You know, Raghu told me to make sure to look at all of you. Thank you, Raghu, for that. Because I'm always looking at Ramdas. Because I feel I'm in his space here. My meat puppet is sitting, studying his meat puppet, where I'm going to be in that wheelchair one of these days, I know. So I'm learning how he can be happy and blissful in that, because he knows his nirvana. He calls his nirvana Supreme Self. The Buddhists also do. They say the Supreme Self of selflessness. When you get to the fork in the road, just take it. And just don't worry about your concept about either one. But when Buddha meets someone who's excessively self-centered, he teaches, or she, there are female Buddhas, she teaches selflessness. Because it makes you unhappy to be very self-centered. If you're always thinking about how you're doing, then you're never satisfied with it, are you? You know, when your mind is blown, when does it stop being blown? When you think, how blown was it? Then you're like, oh, it could have been better. Right? So only when you're not thinking about yourself do you have a chance. That's why compassion makes you happy. Dalai Lama likes to say, when you become compassionate for other people, means you start thinking about what they need and what makes them happy, instead of constantly thinking about what you need and what makes you happy. And so he said, Dalai Lama says, the first person you successfully make happy when you think that way is yourself. I like that. By not worrying about how you're doing, you feel better right away. Because if you start thinking about how you're doing, it's never good enough. Who's satisfied when they think about it? So I'm very happy. So the Dalai Lama also said, we can talk soul, we can talk self. It's okay, it's not a problem, actually. And India as a whole discovered that, you know. And so that's why India was conquered by the nasty Europeans.
Yeah.
Because India, and before that by some Middle Eastern types, all going on the thing about the big self. And they were all into, okay, you know, Come and conquer us. And you know, we do feel sorry for you people in England with the lousy cooking. And you need that whole street full of Indian restaurants. You know that when you go to London, Brompton Road, that's the only place to go. You can't eat that. Like Yorkshire pudding used to be like shoe leather. And weird, overcooked everything. And the Indian spices. Anyway. So that's why, you know, we look forward to the day very soon when we see that the people who get conquered are usually the superior and better ones with the gentle culture. The people who conquer are usually the bullies and the mafias, you know, instead of the people who conquer all the great civilization, you know, Marshall Fiber, you know the guys,
Yeah.
you know, Harvard, Yale, West Point, same. And that's why this is a great group that Ram Dass has assembled here, Krishna Das and Raghu Das. Are you Raghu Das? Is there a Das in there?
You, me?
Yeah.
I am Raghavindra Das.
Oh, Ravindra Das, okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Nina Das. That's my wife's name. She's my unwilling guru. She hasn't accepted me as a disciple in 51 years. I'm still a novice. But if I really argue with her, she'll agree that I made a slight progress. But I'm still not a worthy disciple. I'm not. So what I was saying about why I love all of you is that I see most of the guys are looking around nervously at the ladies, meaning they're attentive to their teachings, to their presence. And that means they're on the path to nirvana.
Yes.
Because the women are leading the way. They are. They know about self and other. And men don't know that. Men tend to think, I'm the one. Like that guy Neo in the Matrix. They do, I'm the one. And she knows that she's more the one because she knows about what the other people are feeling. She's more attentive to the other people, more aware, can expand identity. What a Buddha is defined as. Another thing Ram Dass said about loving everyone and loving everything. He corrected me on this yesterday. He said everything, not just everyone. That's true. Because what Buddha is defined in the Mahayana Buddhism as a being who identifies with all life and all things. So when you become a Buddha, you have this apparently, and I only know this by definition, not yet by experience. You suddenly feel you are everybody else. So imagine if you were in this room and you suddenly were seeing what is going on in this room from everybody's perspective simultaneously. It might come to you as a bit of a shock. Usually we look out from our own meat puppet, right? We're enclosed within our own meat puppet. Suddenly you're in everyone's meat puppet and you see everything from every side. That's what a Buddha is defined. That's what Vishnu means, all-pervading. Vishnu. The word comes from to pervade. So Vishnu is everywhere, you know, from Vishnu's point of view, which means everyone's point of view, which of course is inconceivable to us. That's inconceivable. We think that would be a nightmare. We'd have everybody's headache. So you can only do that if you bring bliss to that kind of perception, apparently. Apparently. I'm still hoping. Put it that way. So please don't worry, Raghu, about self versus selflessness. It's just a fork in the road. And it's just part of the pharmacopoeia of Indian, you know, generosity to the planet. Okay?
Okay.
That's it.
Got it. Got it. Thank you, Bob. So, many years ago, Ram Dass, in a talk that I happened by for a podcast, was asked, well, you talk about these things, in terms of what happens on transition, death, and how do you get these perceptions? How have you made them real in your life? And one of the things that you talked about was you actually told a story from Maharaji. So I want to kind of talk about what we got from Maharaji that led us to have a more visceral understanding of what we're talking about here with non-self, soul, the deathless state, and so on. But one thing, there's a great story that pointed us in the direction of the kind of trust, beyond trust, faith that we had when Maharaji would say, who did not teach really, but he would do things that completely changed our perspective. And this particular story I'll read. Once in Bhumiyadar, which is the temple where Ramdas met Maharaji originally in the foothills of the Himalayas, where Maharaji was staying the night, we had all taken our evening meal and had retired at 10:30 p.m. Around 1 a.m., Maharaji started yelling. He was very hungry, and he must have dal and chapatis. I awoke and reminded him he had already eaten, but he insisted he must have dal and chapatis. Who can understand the ways of such a being? So I woke the pujari, the priest, and he built the fire and cooked the food. It was ready about 2 a.m. And we watched Maharaji consume the food with great appetite. Then we all retired again. About 11 a.m. the next morning, a telegram arrived saying that one of Baba's old devotees, Maharaji's old devotees, had died in a village down by the plains about 150 miles away the previous night at 2 a.m. When the telegram was read to Maharaji, he said, "You see, that's why I needed the dal and chapatis." And this aroused our curiosity because we didn't see at all. We pressed him, but he would say nothing more. Finally, after 2 or 3 persistent questions, he said, "Don't you see? He had been wishing for chapatis and dal, and I didn't want him to carry that desire on through death, or it would affect a future birth." And he also said once that Ramdas quoted, "If you even desire a mango at the moment of death, you'll be born as an insect." And he said that. So, Krishnadas, maybe you can just reflect a little bit on whatever moments that you might have experienced while we were there with Maharaji in those days that connect to that place which is beyond the meat puppet, shall we say.
I think the only reason that I'm here and others are here is that by some extraordinary good karma, our meat puppet happened to bump into one of those meat puppets who knew that they weren't a meat puppet. And by being in contact with a being like that, you see and experience yourself that what's possible, what direction we're really going in, even if we're facing in the opposite direction while we're going there. Being around Maharaji was like that. And the more we were around him, the more we realized that everything he did was in response to some need in the beings around him. Whether we could see those beings, whether they were present physically or not. Because he was not limited by the physical body. You forget that, you know. You get busy with your life, running after this and that. And even having the grace to have been with a being like that, some of us, me, spend so much time just completely asleep, kind of just trying to swimming through stuff, forgetting that you have to kind of come up for air sometime. And so Maharaji used to say to us, Ram Nam Karne Se Sab Pura Ho Jata. So from repeating these names, the names that we chant, the names of God, the divine name, everything is made full and brought to completion. He said that to us over and over. So for me, the chanting practice is what ripens my being, my awareness, my life. I don't understand it with my mind, but it's something I feel deeply that as time has passed, the little bit of practice that I've done has ripened this thing here. Sri Ramakrishna, who was a great saint in India in the 1800s, used to talk about this practice. And he said, he talked about the way it works. He said, every repetition of one of these names carries Shakti, carries power, like a seed carries the tree within it. It's the possibility of, what do you call it, of growth, of something coming. So every repetition of one of these names is a seed. And he said, you know, these seeds get carried by the wind and they land on the roof of an old house in the jungle. And this roof of this house was made from tiles that were hardened in the sun, not in a kiln. So they weren't really that hard. And over time and seasons, those tiles began to break up and get softer. And the seeds of all the repetitions of the name, which are lodged between all these tiles, when the tiles get soft, the roots begin to grow. And the roots grow, and they destroy the roof of the house. And they keep growing, and they destroy the walls of the house. Ramakrishna says that house is who we think we are. You know, you notice what he doesn't say. He doesn't say it's going to feel like this or it's going to feel like this. He doesn't say anything about me, because me is the house that's being melted down by the repetition of the name. So when the roof is gone and the house and the walls are gone, there's no inside, there's no outside. There's only open space. The me, which was the temporary construction called a house, is not there anymore. But space, which was inside, being, and being which was outside, is now just being without any obstructions, without any limits. There's no more thinking you are who you think you are. When I was going to kill myself in India, in the temple, I was having a nervous breakdown, full-on hallucinations, and Maharaji looked at me and said, "What are you going to do, jump in the river?" Ha ha ha! The river was like 6 or 7 inches deep. But I thought, you know, if I could get my head wedged under one of the rocks, maybe it would work, you know. He said, "You can't die, you can't die." And he said, only Jesus died the real death. What? Why? Because he never thought of himself. The real death is when thoughts of me no longer even arise, right? That's why Jesus died. He said he never thought of himself. He gave his life for his people. He tried to die, but he failed. And he became immortal. That's the way he said it. And I said, because one of the things he was teasing me about getting married, right? And I didn't want to do that because I saw that some of the people in the group got together with other people in the group, and Maharaj would say, oh, you're friends. They're friends. Isn't that nice? Oh. The next day, oh, you're good friends. The next day, you're married, go to America, see your parents. So I wasn't going to do that. So he started jabbing me a lot about getting married. So when I was having this nervous breakdown, I said, Maharaj, I want to marry you. And he went, that if you marry me, all you'll get is love. So, the repetition of the name. That's what I hold on to because this is the way I connect with his presence more deeply. For me, his presence is presence. It's not him as opposed to some other being. It's just space, being, presence everywhere, everything. And so through this practice, through that practice, that's how I plant those seeds that will grow into non-separateness. When the soul recognizes its true nature. Hopefully. Thanks. Good job.
Do you have something on your mind?
Did I have one?
Do you have something on your mind just now?
Well, I was just thinking that we shouldn't sell death short. That in French, do people know what le petit mort means in French? You know what it means? A little death, but you know what it refers to in French? Oh, yes. You know, in those near-death experiences, all these people who, you know, they're out there, they're in the white light, they're in the tunnel, they're like really moving, they're thinking, oh, Ramdas was right, oh, Buddha was right, oh, wow, you know, and then some guy shows up, either Jesus or Maharaj or somebody, and says, what, are you going to jump in the river? Like, back, you have work to do. And then bam, they're back on the operating table in their broken meat puppet, you know? So death is not nothingness. You have to overcome this American thing, materialism thing, that death is nothing. Death is not nothing. Nothing is not scary. Death is bliss. Death is super orgasm. And then, you know, it's a little, that's frightening too. Because when you're all like happily disconnected, you dismantle your meat puppet in bliss. Then you're trained to be afraid of what might happen to you, what somebody might do to you. So then you're like scared. So that's all. I just wanted to say, don't sell death short. Book of the Dead says that you go through 8 stages, which we'll talk about in another session, and then you come in a stage where you are everything. You are, but in your first everything, it feels like an empty space, and there's nobody else there, and you're not there actually. But then you feel frightened of that, because you're used to being in a body bag and fending off whatever worrisome things might come at you from the environment. So that you are the whole environment, and you are, you know, you're just a little disoriented, put it that way. And they say you are just Father, Mother, Buddha, total goodness, Samantabhadra, in blissful union in every subatomic energy. It's all bliss energy. And if you just surrender to that, if you have the generosity to give yourself to that, then no problem. You won't be driven by any greed or hatred or fear or anything into anything. And then they leave it at that, actually. But then it's very annoying in the Book of the Dead, because then they keep telling you, next page, they say, well, if you didn't do that, now we have another problem. And they keep going about how as if you failed. But the point is this, we're all in nirvana now, and we've always been in nirvana. We are always the Supreme Self. We are always one with Brahma. And it's only a matter of discovering it. It's not a matter of newly creating it, because it's uncreated. So that doesn't block us from being lovingly engaged with other individuals and bringing that awareness into our interactions in a loving manner. And then loving becomes spontaneous and automatic, because we are the beloved at the same as the love, with the love and the beloved. So it's natural. It's like, do you love your own hand enough to pull it off a hot pot on the stove? Well, you don't think you're loving it, you just don't like the pain. So you want your hand to feel okay, so you pull it away. And you don't say, oh, I'm so, thank you, hand says to thank you, you're so compassionate. You don't think that. So then if you feel everybody's feeling in a loving manner, then you automatically want them all to feel just great. So that's the non-dual thing, to bring the Brahma body, the Buddha body, the Nirvana body, the transcendent, indivisible body, into all these, dealing with all these meat puppets. And finding the light that we're all meat puppets, but really what we really are, even the physicists admit it. They pretend to run away from it so they can keep their tenure, but they all admit it. If you get down to analyzing with the atoms in your own body, you get down to speed of light, mass becomes infinite, a bunch of Higgs bosons running around, and you don't know what's going on there. So we're all completely permeated with light, and we are light. But that takes baby steps to reach there. So I guess I did want to unburden myself. Thank you so much. That's all. Okay? So let's enjoy it. And therefore, we shouldn't, in the Book of the Dead, in cultural things, when someone dies, you don't go like, That doesn't help them. Frank, I'm sure, will tell us about that. You realize they're going to a better place if they can stay there, but they probably do shooting past, but they tend to. So we can be happy. Nina tells a story when she was with Tim in Rishikesh, where they met a bunch of sadhus and one of their members had died, and they were running around eating bananas and singing. They had him on a stretcher. They came and threw him in the Ganges, and they were like going, yay, he's like, I'm liberated from his meat pup. And Tim, you can imagine Tim's worry, and her too. They're like, oh. But it was like just peeling a banana or something. They were just totally there. So that's all. So don't be scared, but be happy. That's the key, I think.
So we've talked a lot of different things here, and perhaps I just asked Ramdas if he wouldn't mind, we all can see if anybody has any questions at this point. So maybe Mike, you can, or Jonathan, come around with a microphone, and there's somebody right over there. You have to come all the way around here.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Colleen.
Hi, Colleen.
And thank you all very much for being here and for sharing your wisdom with all of us. I want to talk a little bit about the body, though. And I'm just speaking from my own perspective. I've been very cruel to my body. And I'm grateful. and angry with her. I look at her as something separate from myself a lot of the time, when in fact she's something that I gathered to myself to experience this life. And so I do have a question through all of this, and it's not meant to be an unkind question, but Ram Dass, I love your body. Do you love your body? Good.
Yeah, yes. It captures my consciousness. Pain, but I love it. I love it. I love this incarnation because I'm learning so much. This is an incarnation where my perspective changed. Ego, soul. Even the soul loves the body. Even the one loves the body. I said, I love everything, including my body, including my wheelchair and stuff like that. Yeah.
You make light of how much pain you do go through. Can you talk about, when we've talked before about this, and you talk about how the pain really grabs your mind, your consciousness, right? And talk about in that moment, how you relate with that to transform it.
I have neuropathy, and it's the toes and the feet. The nerves are screaming because they don't have enough what the blood takes you, and they scream, and sometimes I just shift my attention to another hurt. Bladder. Everything is hurts. Everything. shifting of the attention shows how the toes are really toeish. It's like a shifting of my attention. Then I talked to Maharaji. I repeat the name. The name is the One. Is the One. The toes are in the One. They're not just toes. The body is part of nature. It's part of change. It's what I look at change, the movie, and I'm the leading actor. Change. This part of this is changing, and changing toes, changing toes. It's your attention. Toes, bladder, this. Changing one's attention shows you how trivial they're all just hurt, just want to get attached to my toes. My attachment to my toes feeling good. It's all passing show. Passing show. The stroke I experienced I was in the hospital. All my, quote, friends, all my family and doctors and nurses, all the stuff. And they were walking, they were in the room. And then I focused on their thoughts. And they were oh, stroke. Oh, either and I really thought I gotta get rid of them. And then I went in bed, and there was a picture on the wall of Maharaji somebody had put there on the hospital wall. And I said to Maharaji, "Is this grace? I thought I was going to have a graceful life." And he said, "Wait and see." And it turned out that the stroke stopped my golf and my sports car. And sex. And my cello, playing with my cello. All the things I was doing outside. And then I had to concentrate the inside. Then there was a depression immediately after the stroke. And I figured, what could that be? And I was depressed because I I had no faith. Two weeks went by. I had started to talk to Maharaji. Repeat the names. The name of the One. And I was slowly getting into the One. It was like this ego would take. I was standing at a beach, right at the water's edge, the ocean of oneness, the ocean of love, of consciousness. I put my shoes down on the sand, and my ego in the sand, and then I jumped. I became a wave. Boil, 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 boil. Boil, 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 boil. There wasn't any pain. No stroke, no grace, no mind. But they were all in here. Wow. And that's what I brought here to this gathering. I bring Maharaji. The ocean of love. Splash round with me.
Thank you.